It is officially time to do our 2024 book tag. So let's jump right into it and talk about the 101 books that I read in 2024. How we're going to structure this, we are going to go through month by month, and I'm going to tell you what I read, my average rating, and that for each month. And then we are going to assign book accolades. So I'm going to talk about some of my favorite books of the year, most surprising, favorite authors, all of that type of stuff we're going to talk about here. A lot of my prompts I did pull from either other YouTubers or came up with them on my own. So feel free, I will put them all in the description down below. So if you want to create an end of the year book tag, feel free, you can steal some of my prompts if you would like. And yeah, we're gonna jump right into it. In the month of January, I read 5 total books. It was Kingdom of Ash, Ruthless Vows, Butcher and Blackbird, Flawless, and Lightlark. In total, I read 2,611 pages, and my average rating for that month was 4.4 stars. In February, I read only 2 books. I read Nightbane and The Fury. Total pages was 682. And my average rating was a 4-star. Can you hear my dog snoring? In the month of March, I read 2 books, The Resort and Powerless. My total pages was 907, and my average rating was a 4.5 star. In the month of April, I read 8 books. I read The Last Breath, Heartless, Love on the Brain, The Bell Jar, A Door in the Dark, Glass, Listen for the Lie, and Yours Truly. My total pages was 2,826, and my average rating was a 4.06. In May, I read a total of 17 books. I read The Naturals, Killer Instinct, All In, Bad Blood, Powerless, 5 Survive, Reckless, The Summer of Broken Rules, the entirety of the Mindfuck series, Funny Story, Pitch Black, Just for the Summer, and The Order. My total pages was 5,797, and my average rating was a 4.42. In June, I read a total of 11 books. I read The Outsiders, Not in Love, Hide, Hooked, Addicted to You, Ricochet, Addicted for Now, The Wish, People We Meet on Vacation, This Summer Will Be Different, and The Cruel Prince. My total pages was 3,949, and my average rating was a 4.14. In July, I read 17 books. I read Powerful, Reckless, Summer Romance, Lessons in Chemistry, Wild Love, Kiss the Sky, Hothouse Flower, The Perfect Couple, Thrive, Addicted After All, The Inmate, All the Little Raindrops, Night Shift, Ward D, and A Touch of Darkness. My total pages was 6,873, and my average rating was 4.21. In August, I read 13 books. I read Apprentice to the Villain, Hidden Pictures, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, The Escape Room, It Ends With Us, A Court of Thorns and Roses, A Court of Mist and Fury, A Court of Wings and Ruin, A Court of Frost and Starlight, and A Court of Silver Flames. I also read Never Lie, and then I DNF'd None Shall Sleep and Fuel the Fire. In total, I read 4,925 pages, and my average rating was a 4.5. In the month of September, I read 4 books. I read Demon Copperhead, Station 11, All the Light We Cannot See, and Spookily Yours. My total pages was 1,683, and my average rating was a 3.75. In October, I read 8 books. I read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, A Flicker in the Dark, 11/22/63, Ninth House, Hell House, The Mist, Mr. Magic, and The Deal. In total, I read 3,200 pages. My average rating was a 3.7. In the month of November, I read 7 books total. I read One Dark Window, Two Twisted Crowns, The Shining, If We Were Villains, Phantasma, A Little Life, and The Mistake. In total, I read 3,215 pages, and my average rating was a 4.42. In the month of December, I read 6 books. I read Rock, Paper, Scissors, How My Neighbor Stole Christmas, Spectacular, Bride, The Lodge, and Fahrenheit 451, In total, I read 1,971 pages, and my average rating was a 3.92. Now that we have all of the stats for everything that I read this year, we are going to assign some accolades. So we're just going to start off with my favorite book of the year, and that was Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. I think this book really resonated with me because I am a woman in a STEM field. I'm studying engineering, and it's just the struggles of being a woman in a male-dominated field, especially back in this time period when they weren't respected, and her just fighting for that respect and doing what she loves. I absolutely loved this, fell in love with it. I really want to reread this every year is kind of my hope now. I kind of want to get the special edition of it because I loved this book so much, but this one was my favorite book of the year. It stuck with me. I think about it constantly, and it is just the favorite book that I picked up this year, and I'm so glad that I finally read it. Moving on to my most surprising books of the year, and this is good and bad. So on the bad side, my most surprising book was Fuel the Fire by Kristen Becker Ritchie. I actually ended up DNFing this and paused my read of the Addicted Calloway Sisters series. I started out really strong. I absolutely loved this series, was flying through the books, and then all of a sudden I just became so disinterested in the story and the characters, and I just didn't want to read about them anymore. So I DNF'd that book, stopped reading the series. Maybe at some point I will pick it back up, but that was just really surprising to me that I started the series so strong, and then all of a sudden my thoughts just completely changed and I had no motivation to read it. One of my things this year that I really focused on was not forcing myself to read books. If I want to DNF it, I can DNF a book. So that was something that I focused on, and I definitely did do. So I did DNF that, but hopefully I will maybe pick that back up in the future and finish that series. On the good side, a book that surprised me the most was 11/22/63 by Stephen King. This was the first ever Stephen King book that I ever read. It is a hefty one. And this one surprised me so much. I really loved this. This was kind of contending with my favorite book of the year, which really surprised me. Going into it, I did not think that was going to be the case, but it really was. I constantly think about this book. I originally rated it 4.5 stars. However, I've thought about it so much since reading it that I've actually upped the rating to a 5-star. Because that is just how much I think about it. I absolutely loved this book. I thought the premise was so interesting, talking about time travel, and if you could go into the past, would you change it? What that would affect, and I just really loved it. So this book was the most surprising in just how much I really enjoyed it. On to my saddest book of the year, and that was A Little Life by Hanya Y. This book is very deep. It is very dark. If you have not seen anyone talk about this book yet, that is what you will hear from everyone. It is a hard read. It talks about a lot of really triggering topics, so if you do want to pick this up, please look at trigger warnings and take a break if you need. It is a hard read. It was really, really sad, really, really hard to get through. I am glad that I did finally read this. I've had this on my shelf. I've been very intimidated by it, and I finally decided to pick it up. I did listen to a lot of it on audiobook because it is a very long book. It's almost 800 pages, so it is on the longer side, and I did end up picking the audiobook up for it. I finished this, but this was by far the saddest book that I read this year. Now we're going to talk about my favorite series of the year. So the first one is considered a series, and that is the Mindfuck series by S.C. Abbey. This is actually a combine of all of the 5 books in the series. They're all on Kindle Unlimited. That's how I originally read them. But I loved the series so much that I did buy the physical book, and it's all 5 books in one, which you put them all together, by themselves, they're actually pretty short. One of them was my shortest book of the year. It was like 150 pages. That's how long the book was. But you put them all 5 together and it's your average length book. This series did it for me. I absolutely loved it. I am a big true crime Criminal Minds girl, so this one kind of scratched an itch. You're following a serial killer that's kind of getting revenge on people from her past, but her boyfriend is the FBI agent that's trying to find her and investigating her murders. So it is a really crazy storyline. I was nervous to get into it, but I ate it up. Absolutely loved it. So this is one of my favorite series. I read this full thing in about 2 days. All 5 books in 2 days. I ate them up. Was one of my favorite ones of the year. This was also in contention for my favorite book of the year, and by far, like, one of my favorite that I picked up throughout this year. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about this series, which I read pretty much all of it in 2023, but I did finish Kingdom of Ash in 2024. I finished it right at the beginning of the year, but I'm still going to include this because Throne of Glass is still my favorite series of all time. I think about it constantly. I did finish Kingdom of Ash in 2024, so I'm including it in this because I will take any chance I get to talk about this series. It just holds a special place in my heart. I absolutely love it. If you have not picked up Throne of Glass yet, if you're intimidated, if you're scared, I highly encourage you to do it. I absolutely love it. It is very loved for a reason. It is a long series, it's 8 books, but if you do, especially if you get to this final book, it is so heartbreaking and so lovely, and goes down as probably my favorite book series of all time. I don't know what can beat it. We shall see, but I do want to reread this next year. That's kind of one of my goals because I've loved it so much. So this is Kingdom of Ash, which is a part of the Throne of Glass series. The last series that was my favorite that I read this year was actually the Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. There's 4 books in this series. They're all sitting back here. There are 4 books total in the series. They are really, really good. Again, I really love true crime, Criminal Minds, all of that, and this is perfect for that type of book and that type of interest. It is so good. You're following teens that have these special talents that are helping the FBI solve these crimes, and there's other mysteries kind of going along in the background that come to the forefront in other books, and it's just amazing. Absolutely loved this series. I devoured this series in a matter of like a week, and they're just really good. I would highly encourage anyone to pick them up. There's kind of a subplot of romance. It's very small, not very large, so don't go into it thinking that. It is a young adult series, but I highly recommend it. Jennifer Lynn Barnes knows how to write a good young adult series. I really loved the Inheritance Game series as well that she has written. I actually only liked the first 3 books in that series. I don't like any of the other ones that have come out since then, but The Naturals was also one of my favorite series that I did read this year. Moving on, we're going to talk about my prettiest covers that I read this year. This has nothing to do with if I enjoyed the book or not. It is just the covers that I've liked the most. I do have 2 for this. So the first one is All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. I think this is just a beautiful cover. I absolutely love the coloring and everything on it. I think it's just so beautiful. I love the spine that it continues the main cover, and I just really love it. It's simple, but I really love it. That is one of my favorite covers, as well as the special edition that I have of If We Were Villains. I really like this, especially what the book is about. I think it fits perfectly, and I really enjoyed this cover. So those are 2 of my favorite covers of the year from books that I read. Now we're going to talk about some like genre specific things. So the best thrillers that I read this year, I actually read them both on my Kindle, so I don't have the physical books of them, but the first one is Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. This is my first ever Alice Feeney book that I read. I just read it in December and I absolutely loved it. I do want to buy the physical copy because I loved the book so much. I really loved the twists within the book, and I loved the writing and the writing style, so I'm really excited to dive more into this author, to read some of her other work, but I really, really loved this book. And then the other thriller that I really enjoyed this year was Never Lie by Frida McFadden. I've been slowly working my way through the Frida McFadden arsenal, and this is by far the favorite one that I've read this year. I haven't read The Boyfriend, which is a new release. That is one that I'm hoping to get to pretty soon. But I really enjoyed Never Lie. I liked the plot twist. I didn't find this one as predictable as some of her other ones. Some of them I kind of guessed, but I think she's one of the queens of thrillers, and especially they're all on Kindle Unlimited, so I love to just pick up her books when I'm wanting a good, quick, fast-paced thriller, and this definitely did that for me. So those were my 2 favorite thrillers that I read this year. Now we have my book with my favorite quotes, and that is definitely The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I read this, I don't even remember, I think it was August, and I really love the storyline of this. You're following a girl named Addie LaRue who she has this curse on her where no one can remember her. So the moment they turn around, they forget she was even there, forget who she was, but she's also immortal. So that is kind of the storyline. It's her going through life of struggling because no one can remember her, so she can't make connections, and her life is really difficult because of that. But it has some really beautiful quotes. I have one-page bookmark still, so I'm hoping that this has the quote. Let me find the quote that I was gonna read. Okay, I found it. So, this is the quote. It says, "Because time is cruel to all, and crueler still to the artist. Because vision weakens, and voices wither, and talent fades. Because happiness is brief, and history is lasting, and in the end, everyone wants to be remembered." And I think that is just a beautiful quote. And I think it really drives a lot of us that in the end of the day, we want to be remembered. And that is something I've always talked about. And like my biggest fear ever since I was little was unfulfilled potential and just not living up to what I want for myself, what other people want for me. And that book just really resonated. I think it has some beautiful quotes. It is beautiful storytelling. The writing is absolutely beautiful within this book. If you have not read this yet, highly encourage you to pick it up. It was such a beautiful read. It was one of my favorite books of the year, and I highly encourage everyone to pick this up. Like I said, it has some beautiful quotes, and this one by far had my favorite quotes of the year. Okay, so the next thing, we're going to talk about my favorite new authors. So this is any author that I picked up for the first time this year and really loved their writing. So the first one is Stephen King. I read his books for the first time this year. I really enjoyed his writing. I think his writing lends well in the horror genre, as well as listening to his writing on audiobooks is really, really interesting as well. So I have picked up Stephen King for the first time this year and did really enjoy it, so I do plan to slowly work through his repertoire as well. I also picked up Elsie Silver for the first time this year, and I think she's just the queen of writing small town cozy romances. I absolutely have loved all of her books that I've read. I read the Chestnut Spring series and, ooh, what's the new one? With Wild Love and Wild Eyes. I don't remember the name of that series, but I also read the first one in that one. I read Wild Love, and her books are just so fun to read. I absolutely love reading her books, and I think she's just so great at writing romance, writing true connections between characters, and making them so interesting. So, absolutely loved her. I picked up her for the first time this year and read through most of her most recent books. I do want to go back and read her previous series. I think it's like the Gold Rush Ranch series or something like that. So I do want to go back and read that series as well. Another author that I picked up for the first time this year that I really, really liked was Abby Jimenez. I picked up Yours Truly right before Just for the Summer came out, and I really enjoy her writing. I think she writes very realistic characters, very relatable characters, and I really enjoyed getting to read her writing for the first time. Unfortunately, when I picked up Just for the Summer, I was kind of like in a slump, and I don't think I truly appreciated it for what it was. So this summer I do want to reread it, and hopefully I will see it in a different light, because even though I was in that reading slump, wasn't quite in the mood for that book, I still did enjoy it. So I think I will really, really enjoy it when I do finally pick everything back up. Now we will talk about my favorite 2 rereads of the year. So I don't count any of my rereads towards my actual logistics. So technically, I did reread a few books this year that I didn't count towards my total numbers, but it's just I don't want to throw off my ratings, because normally books that I'm rereading, it's either because a new book in a series is about to come out, so I'm rereading the past books, or it's just a book that I really loved that I'm rereading. So I don't want to skew my numbers by including those books in like my rating numbers. So I choked on my own spit. Okay. So let's just jump right into it. My favorite 2 rereads that I did this year. The first one was Assistant to the Villain. This book just scratches something in my brain. It is a just lighthearted, cozy fantasy, and I think it's just so fun. I absolutely loved this series. I reread this right before Apprentice to the Villain came out, which is the second book in the series. I also really loved that book as well. And I think these just hit different when you're just wanting semi-fantasy. It's not too deep, not too serious, but it's still just a fun time. And I just really loved this book and the second book as well. So I really enjoyed getting to reread this. My favorite character is the little frog, Kingsley. I don't know if you can see him, if it'll focus. He's a little frog that holds up signs and talks to the characters, and he's the cutest little thing ever. I absolutely love him. There was a stuffed animal of Kingsley when Apprentice to the Villain came out that I really wanted to get, but they were selling it for $25, and I didn't want to pay $25 for a stuffed animal, which says a lot because I will buy a jelly cat. That's that amount, but that's a story for a different time. Anyway, absolutely loved this reread. And then the second book that I really enjoyed rereading this year was Happy Place by Emily Henry. This was one of the first books I picked up when I got back into reading, and I still love it. I rated it 5 stars when I first read it, rated it 5 stars again. It is just so beautiful. I think it's just a beautiful testament to how life can get really, really hard and it can damage your relationships without you even knowing. And I think it's really beautiful. I love the setting. I love the aspect of friendship in it. The side characters and the friends, we get a lot of information about them and we learn a lot about them, which I really, really appreciate, because sometimes I feel like the side characters, we don't know enough about them and we focus too much on our main characters. Really, this one, I feel like we really got to know some of our side characters, and I really did enjoy that part of it. But this book, it just does something different. I did a whole Emily Henry rereading and ranking video, and this one, even after rereading it, rereading all of her other books as well, I still ranked this #1. I think it'll just hold a special place in my heart because it was one of the books that I first picked up back when I was getting into reading, and I still just absolutely love it. So this was my second favorite reread that I did this year. Now we will go into my most thought about book, and that is 11/22/63. Like I mentioned, I have not stopped thinking about this book since I read it. It really caught me off guard how much I enjoyed it and how much I do think about it. Thus, I increased my rating because I think about it so much, but I absolutely love it, and I think it just, the concept of would you change the past if you could, that really stuck with me, made me really think about my life. I'm like, oh, if I could go back and change this one thing, would I? What would it have changed in my life? And I kind of go down a rabbit hole sometimes when I'm thinking about it, so maybe I shouldn't think about this one as much as I do, but I really, really enjoyed it, and this is the book that I think about the most this year. But there's also another book that I think about all the time. I didn't technically read it this year, but I want to talk about it because it might be kind of surprising for some people, but that is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I read this, I don't even remember when I first read this. It was at the end of last year, I believe, and it has stuck with me. I quite literally think about this book every single day. I don't know why it had such a big impact on me and such a life-changing effect that it has had on me. I know it's not the most beautiful fantasy writing ever. I've obviously read very, very popular fantasy series that are arguably written quite a bit better than this one, but something about this book just really has stuck with me. I think about it all the time, and I thought I'd just mention it. I didn't read it this year, but I thought I'd mention it. The third book in the series is coming out really soon, and yeah, I do think about this book all the time as well. Now we are going to talk about all of my 6-star reads of the year. So my absolute favorite books that I read this year, ones that have had like a profound impact on me, and ones that I really, really loved and can't get enough of. So starting out, we have Kingdom of Ash. This series changed my life, has had a profound impact on me. I actually want to get a Throne of Glass tattoo. I want to get You Do Not Yield tattooed on me. That's how much I love this book and this story and how much of an impact it's had on my life. So Kingdom of Ash and the Throne of Glass series is forever a 6-star series for me. Next up, we have Lessons in Chemistry. This was my favorite book of the year. For obvious reasons, this is a 6-star read for me. It really just changed my view on how I view my hard work and myself, and also the blessing that I have for the opportunities that I have and that I'm accepted in the engineering world. I do have this opportunity to go into the STEM field and prove myself, whereas 40 years ago that wasn't possible and that wasn't the normal. So I think it's really beautiful, and this one really did stick with me as well. Next up, we have the Mindfuck series. This also has stuck with me. I think about it all the time. It was kind of my first ever taste. I don't know if this is considered dark romance. I believe it is. This is kind of my first ever taste into dark romance, but I really enjoyed this. I think just the vigilante aspect of the characters is really, really beautiful to explore, as well as just the storyline in general. I absolutely loved it. Really scratched an itch, and I do want to reread this really soon because I loved it so much, and this is a 6-star series / book for me. I kind of consider it like one big book as opposed to like 5 mini books, but this one really has stuck with me, so no surprise that this one is a 6-star read as well. And then my last 6-star read is The Outsiders. So this book I actually read after the musical came out. I read this in middle school when I first read it, and I actually did really enjoy reading this in middle school. And I remember watching the movie, really enjoying it. And then once the musical came out, I became really obsessed with the musical. If you don't know anything about me, I did do theater and musical theater in high school. I am a theater kid at heart, so absolutely love the musical. So I decided to reread the book, and it's still amazing, beautiful. It's really short. I highly recommend anyone to reread this, especially if you haven't read it since like middle school or high school like I hadn't. It's a beautiful story. I think it's a beautiful depiction of life and how fast things can happen, and I think it's really great. Absolutely loved it. And I think just the time of the musical coming out and getting to read that, I was like full-blown obsession stage with the musical. Getting to read the book just hit different. So that is a 6-star read for me. It's also, I don't know if it's considered a classic. I don't think it is, but it is an older book that's really popular to read in literature settings, so in English classes. So I really appreciate that one as well. Okay. Now we're gonna get a little controversial where I'm gonna express some of my opinions. I like to stress that this is my opinions. You're welcome to have your own thoughts on books. This is just my personal opinion. So we're gonna talk about some popular books that I did not enjoy, because I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about things that I don't enjoy when I'm talking about all of the things that I did enjoy. So maybe this will give you a little bit better insight into my book taste, reading taste. I think my tastes are all over. I can't tell you why I like some books and don't like others, and vice versa, but we're just gonna go right into it. So the first one was Station 11. I read this for my reading books off the New York Times Best Books of the Century list, and I have heard such amazing things about this book, but I really just didn't really like it. I think I was expecting something different. I think after reading the synopsis, I expected a much different storyline and didn't receive that. So after not receiving that, I wasn't as interested, wasn't very pleased with the book. So that partially is what caused my distaste for this book. And I was really sad because I was really hoping I would like this one, but I just quite frankly did not. But it is okay, and it is for some people, it just was not for me. Okay. Next up, we have Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. I also read this for that book, Next up, we have Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. I also read this for the reading books off the New York Times bestseller or Best Books of the Century list. I had really, really high hopes for this book. A lot of people really love this book, really rant and rave. I think I liked the storyline, but I absolutely despised the characters. One of my biggest book pet peeves is when characters are unlikable, and I found these characters insufferable for pretty much most of the book, and that just really ruined it for me. I think if the characters were different, this could have been almost a 5-star. I really liked the storyline, but I just didn't like the characters, and it really just ruined everything for me, took me out of the story, and I didn't enjoy it, unfortunately. But I know a lot of people do love this, but that is just my personal opinion on this book. Next up, we have arguably some two really popular books, and the first one is The Cruel Prince. I only listened to this on audiobook, which might have been my problem, but I just couldn't get into this book. I know some people say you need to push past the first ones and get into the next ones because they really pick up, but I did not enjoy this one enough that I don't even want to pick up the second one. Again, I listened to it on audiobook while I was at work, so maybe that contributed to my distaste towards it. I just wasn't fully focused. It didn't have my full attention. But unfortunately, this one I just didn't really enjoy. There's been a lot of other fantasy series that I've enjoyed a lot more, so I'm not sure if I'm gonna continue this series. If I decide to, I will probably reread this one, but I'll reread it physically, try to get into it, and then go from there. But that's a big if. I have a lot of books that I want to read that I quite frankly think I might enjoy more than this. So this one unfortunately just wasn't to my taste, but we will see. Maybe comment below and try to convince me to read this. So we'll see. Okay. And then the last one that personally I didn't really enjoy but I know is very popular, that is Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. I had the same feelings for Divine Rivals. It wasn't my favorite book that I've ever read. I just couldn't really get into the story. I think it was beautifully written. I will give praise on that. But personally, I just didn't really enjoy the story. And yeah, I just couldn't really get interested in it, which is really unfortunate because this series is really popular. But I, at the end of the first one, was like, okay, I like this enough that I'm going to try out the second one. And then I really struggled to get through this book. So, unfortunately, I did not really enjoy Ruthless Vows, and I know a lot of people do, but that is just my personal opinion. And like I said, one of the beauties of reading and having free will is that you are free to have your own opinions on things. It is okay if you disagree with someone. It is okay if you have different opinions. That is the beauty of being alive, being an individual. And there's no reason to shame other people, hate on other people. If anyone enjoyed these books, that is good for them. I am very happy that they found a book that they enjoyed. I'm not saying that, oh, you're terrible if you enjoy it. No. I think it is beautiful if you find a book that you enjoy. Just personally, I did not enjoy these ones, but I could see why they would be for other people. So, just thought I'd go on a little rant because I've seen so many videos of people doing displeasure to other people because of their opinions on books, and I do not stand for that here. So, we're just gonna move on. Okay, let's move on. I really tried not to repeat books for awards, but it's really hard. There was a few books that were really a standout for me this year, and they deserve multiple awards. So, the next book is The Most Unique Premise, so I have two books for this. First up is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I think it's a beautiful premise and very interesting of what would you do if no one could remember you. And I think it's a beautiful storyline. I thought this book was beautiful and I absolutely loved it. And then the other one is 11/22/63. I promise I'm not normally like a huge Stephen King girly. This is my favorite book that I've read by him. The other two that I've read were just okay. But the premise of being able to go change the past, prevent the Kennedy assassination, and see how the world changes is just super unique. I think time travel might be a trope that I want to investigate more that I really liked because I really, really enjoyed this book. So maybe I will focus on trying to pick up other time travel romances. But if you know of any books that are similar to either of these, maybe comment them down below because I would love recommendations. And I really loved these. So I think these were two of the most unique premises that I did read this year. Our second to last category is what are my auto-buy authors? So this kind of changed over the course of the year. I did have some other people on it and I took them off after some of their more recent releases. But the two that did stay the same, the first one is Emily Henry and the second one is Ali Hazelwood. I absolutely loved all of the books that I've read from both of those authors so far. I think I just really enjoy their writing style and how they portray stories and characters, and I've loved both of their writing so much. So those are two authors that I will continuously auto-buy. They both have books coming out next year that are already planned and scheduled, and you best bet I will be getting them on a release day and reading them. So really excited, but those are two of my favorite authors that definitely are auto-buy authors for me. And then our last category is going to be talking about some of the books that I didn't get to this year. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about some of the books that were on my TBR that I was really excited for that I didn't get to read this year. So you'll get a little taste into some of my really hopefuls for 2025. I will definitely probably read all of these in 2025, but I decided to just pick out a few to show you some of them that are on my radar that I will hopefully be reading soon. So the first one is We Used to Live Here. This went pretty popular around, I think it was like September, October-ish, and I really do want to read it. It's on the shorter side, so I think I can finish it pretty quickly, but I really wanted to read this in spooky season, and I did not get around to reading it, but I'm really excited for this. Maybe I'll read it in the winter if it's like a foggy, gloomy day. I think maybe that would be perfect for it as well, but this was one that I did want to pick up. It was really popular, and I do love reading thrillers and stuff when they're popular. I will love book talk, and I'm gonna really miss it on TikTok, but I still have YouTube, so we'll be getting all my recommendations from other YouTubers and stuff like that. But this was one that I didn't get to that I really hoped that I would have. Next up, we have Once Upon a Broken Heart. This is a series. I really want to get to this next year. I love Stephanie Garber and her writing. The Caraval series, one of my favorite series that I have read, and I really want to get to this one. A lot of people talk about it. Some people say this one is even better than Caraval, so I really want to get to this one. I only have the first 2 books in the series because the 3rd book is not out in paperback yet, and I want to get a full paperback set because I think the paperback books are so beautiful. I prefer paperback to hardback. That is just my personal opinion. And I hate having mismatched series. That is one of my pet peeves. So I only have the first 2 books, and hopefully the paperback of the 3rd book will come out soon so that I can complete the series. But I'm really scared of starting this before that paperback comes out because I feel like I'm going to read the first 2 books, want to read the 3rd one, and then I'm like, well, do I buy it on my Kindle? Do I buy the physical book when it's a hardback? I don't know. That is just personal qualm, especially on bookshelves. I hate unmatched series, but that is just a personal opinion of mine. Next up, we have Six of Crows. This is obviously another really, really popular series that I really want to get to. I had it on my fall TBR / winter TBR. I just never got around to it. I read a lot of fantasy this fall / winter, so hopefully I'll be able to pick that one up soon. Because it's really popular. I've heard a lot of great things about it, so I do want to finally pick that one up as well. Then we also have The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I actually think this is going to be one of my first reads of 2024, or 2025. That is so crazy to say. We're almost in 2025. Anyways, I really want to pick this up. It's a hefty one, but I've heard such amazing things. I've heard it's really, really sad. And sometimes, you know, I just want to cry. I want a good cry, and I think this will do it. So maybe I will pick this one up soon. There's one other Christmas book that I want to read before picking up this one. So this is another book that I didn't get to in 2024, but I really hope to in 2025. And then the last one is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I actually started this already. However, it's kind of hefty writing. It's not a mindless read. You do kind of have to pay attention. It's very wordy, and I do enjoy that, but at the time when I picked it up, I was kind of just wanting a mindless read, so I did put it back down. Hopefully I will pick this back up and finish it. I've kind of delved into dark academia this year, and I'm really trying to find what I like in that genre, and this is obviously one of the most popular ones that you will see, most recommended, so I'm hoping that I will be able to get this one finished in 2025. That was a lot of talking, and I feel quite parched, but I think that is going to be it for our 2024 book tag. It was a great year of reading. It was the first year that I ever started posting YouTube videos. And I just really enjoy getting to share one of my hobbies and one of my loves with other people, and it's just been a really great year for reading. I'm really excited for this next year. I'm going to be graduating college, starting a full-time job, and life's just going to be really, really crazy and hectic, so I'm excited to see what this next year brings, especially reading-wise, and I will take you guys along with for everything. So if you enjoyed today's video or my channel in general, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Comment down below if you have read any of these books or what your favorite books of the year are, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!